In the heart of Accra, where the dusty roads meet the glow of modern ambition, Sarah's story began in the shadow of hardship. Born in a humble neighborhood, she learned early that life was a fierce teacher. As a young girl, Sarah often watched the elegant homes and manicured gardens that she would one day claim as her own, even though her present meant endless struggle and servitude. Working as a waitress in a local diner, she endured the sneers and whispers of those who looked down on her lowly job. Every plate she carried, every coffee cup she balanced, was a reminder of the disdain that society held for her. Yet, in every mocking laugh and every cruel comment, Sarah discovered an ember of resolve. She vowed that no one would ever hold her back again. The bitter memories of humiliation were seared into her heart, but they also became the driving force behind her ambition. In that vibrant city, with its mix of tradition and modernity, Sarah was determined to rewrite her fate. The daily grind in a restaurant under the relentless tropical sun taught her the values of hard work, resilience, and hope. Despite the pain and the endless taunts, she held on to a vision of a future where she would rise above the circumstances of her birth. In whispered prayers and silent dreams, she promised herself that she would turn every slight into a stepping stone towards greatness. The very same streets that had once echoed with the laughter of her detractors would soon resonate with the sound of her triumph. Every challenge was an opportunity cloaked in disguise. And so, as the night fell over Accra and the city lights shimmered against the vast African sky, Sarah's resolve hardened like forged steel. A determination to one day own not only her destiny, but also the symbols of the very power that once mocked her. The bitterness of Sarah's early days was inextricably linked to Mark, a man whose name became synonymous with cruelty in her memory. Mark was a product of privilege, his life built on the foundation of wealth and entitlement, and he never missed a chance to remind her of her inferiority. In the crowded corridors of the restaurant, his condescending tone and piercing gaze were weapons he wielded with surgical precision. "Waiting tables is all you'll ever be good for," he would sneer, a phrase that haunted her every move. The hurtful words stung like the hot African sun on unprotected skin, and the echo of his voice was enough to make her stomach churn with both shame and fury. But as years passed, Sarah began to see that every barb was a challenge, a dare to transcend the limits imposed by people like Mark. Her early encounters with humiliation served as a crucible, refining her determination. While others might have crumbled under such relentless mockery, Sarah's spirit only grew fiercer. Every insult was a spark that fueled her burgeoning ambition. The insult of waiting tables, the sneer of superiority from Mark, and the jeers of an entire community of skeptics began to blur into the background as she set her eyes on a loftier prize, real estate. In the narrow alleys of Accra, beneath the veneer of wealth and status, she noticed opportunities that others overlooked. The same hands that once balanced dishes would one day balance ledgers and properties. Even as Mark and his ilk laughed, she quietly gathered knowledge, networks, and strategies. Each whispered secret of the real estate market was a drop of water in the ocean of her dreams. The memory of Mark's cruelty burned bright in her heart, and it was that fire that ignited a rebellion, a quest for redemption not just for herself but for every soul who had been mocked and cast aside. The city, with all its splendor and decay, was a chessboard on which she would soon outmaneuver her enemies and claim victory over fate. Sarah's transformation from a humble waitress to a determined entrepreneur was not sudden. It was forged through years of silent struggle and relentless perseverance. Amid the rhythmic pulse of Accra's daily hustle, she dedicated herself to learning every nuance of the real estate world. Nights spent under a single bulb in her cramped apartment became sessions of intense study where she devoured books and articles on property laws, investment strategies, and market trends. Every new piece of knowledge was a brick in the foundation of her future empire. Friends and family, once sympathetic but resigned to her fate, began to notice a change in her eyes, a steely glint of ambition that outshone the fading memories of past humiliation. She started small, investing in modest homes in overlooked suburbs. Each transaction was a battle won against the systemic scorn that had once defined her existence. The urban sprawl of Accra offered hidden treasures among its worn-out buildings and neglected neighborhoods, and Sarah's keen eye for potential soon turned these forgotten structures into profitable ventures. Despite the numerous obstacles and the bitter rejections from banks and established brokers, she built her reputation as a shrewd, no-nonsense investor. Every setback only strengthened her resolve. Her journey was peppered with moments of profound isolation, evenings when the weight of past mockery and current struggles pressed upon her, making the path ahead seem insurmountable. But even in those moments, the faint memory of Mark's sneer propelled her forward. She promised herself that one day she would reclaim not just her dignity but also a measure of justice. As the moon cast its silver glow over the bustling city streets, Sarah would stand outside her modest office, envisioning a future where the very hands that once served her food would now pay tribute to her success. In that quiet contemplation, every hardship transformed into an opportunity, every insult into an impetus for a grander vision. With each passing day, the seeds of her empire grew stronger, nurtured by the relentless spirit of a woman who refused to be defined by her past. As the seasons turned in the lively streets of Accra, Sarah's modest investments began to bear fruit. Each small victory was a testament to her unwavering commitment, and the transformation in her life was as palpable as the warm African breeze. She began acquiring larger properties, slowly piecing together a portfolio that reflected both her tenacity and her strategic brilliance. With every purchase, the face of the neighborhood changed. Old, dilapidated buildings were reborn as vibrant symbols of progress and resilience. Yet, every acquisition carried a silent, personal vendetta. Each property belonged to someone who had once mocked her or looked down upon her status as a waitress. The satisfaction of watching her detractors' fortunes crumble was intoxicating, a bittersweet reminder that those who had once tormented her were now unwittingly fueling her ascent. In boardrooms and at community gatherings, whispers about Sarah's uncanny success began to spread like wildfire. Her methods were ruthless, her determination legendary. She was no longer the timid girl who balanced plates, she was now a formidable force in the real estate arena. Her journey was interwoven with the rich tapestry of African culture, where every setback was seen as a test of character and every triumph a celebration of human resilience. Friends and adversaries alike couldn't help but admire her audacity. Even in the face of legal hurdles and market uncertainties, Sarah's resolve never wavered. The rhythm of her life now beat to the pulse of a booming enterprise, and every day was a reminder that the power of the human spirit could indeed overturn the harshest of destinies. While many sought comfort in mediocrity, she embraced the harsh lessons of life and transformed them into an arsenal for success. The echo of past humiliations now resonated as a powerful symphony of defiance, inspiring not just herself but countless others who dared to dream beyond the confines of their circumstances. With her growing influence, Sarah began to experience the dual-edged nature of power. Success brought not only prosperity but also a torrent of envy and resentment from those who had once looked down on her. In the bustling markets and narrow alleys of Accra, gossip spread like wildfire. People whispered about the mysterious woman who had risen from nothing to command a thriving real estate empire. The very same individuals who had once ridiculed her now eyed her with a mix of fear and admiration. In quiet, hushed tones at local gatherings, the stories of her cunning deals and uncompromising resolve became the talk of the town. Yet, amid this whirlwind of attention, Sarah maintained a laser-like focus on her ultimate goal, retribution. The scars of her past ran deep, and every insult, every sneer, was a reminder of the uphill battle she had fought to get here. She began meticulously planning her next move, a final act of defiance that would leave a mark on the very landscape of her enemies. Her target was none other than Mark, the man who had epitomized her torment and whose disdain had once crushed her spirit. His name was now synonymous with her past miseries, and his residence, a lavish mansion on the outskirts of the city, stood as a monument to his arrogance. Sarah's strategy was as bold as it was personal. She would acquire his property, symbolically seizing the power he once wielded over her. With each property she bought, she was not merely accumulating wealth, she was rewriting the narrative of her life. The acquisition of each building was a declaration that the past no longer held dominion over her future. Yet, beneath the thrill of conquest lay a deeper, more intricate web of emotions. As she advanced toward her ultimate target, the lines between vengeance and justice began to blur, and Sarah found herself at a crossroads. Would reclaiming what was once used to humiliate her truly bring solace? Or was it merely another chapter in a cycle of bitterness? In the vibrant mosaic of Accra's culture, where every success was celebrated as a communal victory and every failure mourned as a personal loss, Sarah's journey was about to reach its most critical juncture. Amid the rising tides of her newfound success, Sarah found herself walking a tightrope between satisfaction and an unsettling inner conflict. Each property she acquired was not just a financial milestone. It was a piece of a puzzle that told the story of her resilience and relentless pursuit of justice. In the rhythmic pulse of the city, every corner, every street echoed the footsteps of a woman who had turned her pain into power. It was during one of these long walks through the lively neighborhoods of Accra that Sarah began to feel an unexpected pang of doubt. Surrounded by the vibrant colors of local markets and the rhythmic beat of African drums, she wondered if the path of revenge was truly the remedy for her old wounds. Memories of whispered kindnesses and moments of unexpected support that had once softened the sting of humiliation began to resurface, challenging her narrative of pure retribution. Yet, the vivid images of sneering faces and cruel remarks remained indelibly etched in her memory. The weight of every sacrifice and every sleepless night added layers to her complex emotions. It was as if the city itself, with its ancient trees and modern skyscrapers, was urging her to find balance between justice and forgiveness. Sarah recalled a time when a stranger had quietly left a meal on her table on a rainy night, a small act of kindness that hinted at the possibility of compassion in a harsh world. But those fleeting memories were quickly overshadowed by the relentless drive to reclaim her dignity. Every deal she closed and every property she purchased was a small victory against a past filled with scorn and neglect. However, as her empire grew, so did the burden of her heart. In quiet moments, as she sat alone in her modest office surrounded by blueprints and property deeds, she questioned if her quest for vengeance was slowly consuming her. The intricate dance between justice and mercy played out against the backdrop of Accra's vibrant life, leaving her torn between the desire to heal and the need to exact a long-overdue reckoning. In that silent, introspective space, Sarah wondered if true victory lay in revenge or in a different kind of redemption, one where the scars of the past could finally begin to fade. With each new transaction, Sarah's reputation as a formidable force in the real estate market spread far beyond the bustling streets of Accra. Business magnates, local politicians, and even the traditional elders began to take notice of the woman who had risen from servitude to command respect. Yet, this surge of recognition brought its own challenges. In boardroom meetings and community forums, her name was mentioned with a mix of awe and apprehension. Her methods, although ruthless, had an undeniable elegance that made even her fiercest critics pause in admiration. In the midst of her meteoric rise, Sarah encountered allies who recognized her potential and enemies who feared her relentless ambition. Mentors emerged from unexpected corners, offering insights into the subtle intricacies of property law and market dynamics, while hidden adversaries plotted to derail her progress. Among these adversaries was a shadowy figure whose identity remained concealed behind layers of deceit and manipulation. This mysterious presence seemed to lurk in the background of every major decision Sarah made, subtly influencing outcomes in ways that defied explanation. As she negotiated deals and sealed contracts, she began to notice small anomalies. Whispers of altered figures in financial records, unexplained delays in property transfers, and anonymous letters that hinted at secrets yet to be unveiled. Though these incidents were often brushed aside as the typical turbulence of a competitive market, they slowly aggregated into an unsettling pattern. Sarah's intuition, honed by years of overcoming adversity, warned her that something was amiss. The underlying current of betrayal flowed beneath her carefully constructed empire, threatening to unravel everything she had worked so hard to achieve. Amid this complexity, the thought of Mark's mansion loomed large in her mind. It was not just a piece of property. It was the ultimate prize, a symbol of the power that once trampled her. As she steeled herself for the final act of retribution, she began to wonder if the true enemy was not Mark himself, but the unseen puppet master pulling the strings behind the scenes. The dichotomy between friend and foe blurred, leaving Sarah to navigate a treacherous path where trust was as scarce as genuine kindness. In the swirling vortex of success and intrigue, Sarah's path converged with the bitter memories of her past. Each property she acquired was a step toward reclaiming her identity, yet the haunting specter of her former life as a waitress remained ever present. In the lively alleys and sun-dappled streets of Accra, where every stone held a story, she recalled the laughter of those who once belittled her. Their mocking voices echoed in her mind, spurring her forward with an unyielding determination. With every new acquisition, Sarah took a moment to pause and reflect on the twisted irony of her journey. How the very hands that had served her with disdain were now the ones that she owned. Her empire, built on a foundation of resilience and cunning, was a living monument to the power of transformation. She navigated the complex world of real estate with the precision of a seasoned warrior, every deal a calculated strike against the oppressors of her past. Amid the clamor of negotiations and the murmur of approval from newfound allies, Sarah never lost sight of the ultimate target, Mark's mansion. It was more than just an address on a map, it was the epicenter of the sorrow and scorn that had defined her earlier years. In hushed conversations with her trusted advisors, she shared the details of her plan, a strategy not only to dismantle the remnants of a bygone humiliation but also to expose the underlying network of deceit that had once conspired against her. Each step was deliberate, every move shrouded in secrecy. As she ventured deeper into the labyrinth of high-stakes investments, Sarah's heart pounded with both anticipation and trepidation. The streets of Accra, vibrant with life and steeped in cultural legacy, bore witness to her metamorphosis. The city with its blend of tradition and ambition became a silent accomplice in her quest for justice. And yet, beneath the surface of her calculated maneuvers, an undercurrent of doubt whispered, had her pursuit of revenge blinded her to the possibility of healing? The answer remained elusive, hidden amidst the complexity of emotions and the ever-present drive to prove herself. In the interplay of shadows and light, Sarah's journey continued, driven by a deep-seated need to reclaim not just the properties but also her dignity and the right to define her destiny. As the winds of change swept through the bustling city, Sarah's real estate empire continued to expand, brick by brick, as if echoing the steady heartbeat of Accra itself. Every transaction added a new chapter to her unfolding saga of defiance and resilience. From modest homes in quiet neighborhoods to sprawling estates that once belonged to the very people who had once sneered at her, each property was a silent testament to her triumph over adversity. With a mix of sheer audacity and meticulous planning, she navigated the intricate dance of negotiations and legalities, ensuring that every acquisition not only increased her wealth but also delivered a blow to those who had underestimated her. In the narrow corridors of power and influence, Sarah's name began to resonate as both a cautionary tale and a beacon of inspiration. Her success was proof that even in a world dominated by established elites, a determined soul armed with vision and grit could rise above the constraints of circumstance. But as the foundation of her empire grew stronger, so did the weight of the past that she carried. In the quiet moments after a long day of signing contracts and closing deals, Sarah would find herself revisiting the memories of humiliation that had once scarred her childhood. These recollections, though painful, now served as reminders of the journey she had undertaken, a journey marked by betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, transformation. The properties she purchased were more than just investments, they were symbols of a personal revolution against a system that had once dismissed her potential. Yet, amidst the celebrations of victory and the tangible progress of her career, an ominous undercurrent began to stir. Whispers of mysterious occurrences, discrepancies in financial records, and clandestine meetings with unknown figures hinted at a deeper conspiracy lurking in the shadows. Even as she methodically acquired the properties of those who had once tormented her, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching, someone whose interest in her rise was far more sinister than mere rivalry. The thought gnawed at her, a persistent echo that questioned whether her enemy was truly the arrogant faces of the past or a more elusive adversary orchestrating events from behind a veil of secrecy. With the looming prospect of acquiring Mark's mansion, these questions grew more urgent, intensifying the delicate balance between triumph and impending peril. The day Sarah finally set her sights on Mark's mansion arrived like a tempest in the midst of a calm sky. This palatial estate, nestled on the outskirts of Accra, and once a symbol of unyielding arrogance, now beckoned her with the promise of ultimate vindication. The mansion was a sprawling edifice, its walls echoing decades of opulence and concealed secrets. For years, it had stood as a monument to the man who had become the embodiment of her early trials, a man whose dismissive words and callous treatment had once shattered her self-worth. Now it was to become the stage for her grand finale. As Sarah meticulously reviewed the documents and legal papers, every detail of the mansion's history unfolded before her eyes. She recalled the cold disdain in Mark's voice when he had ridiculed her, the snide remarks that had seared her soul. Each memory fueled her determination, making every line of the contract a battle cry against the ghosts of her past. The acquisition was not merely a business transaction. It was an act of reclamation. With each signature, she was taking back a piece of the world that had once belittled her. Friends, advisors, and even distant acquaintances marveled at her audacity. "This is more than just buying a house," one whispered, recognizing the gravity of the moment. The mansion, with its ornate pillars and expansive gardens, had long been a fortress of privilege. Sarah envisioned it transformed, a testament to the triumph of the human spirit over adversity. Yet, amidst the adrenaline and the euphoria of victory, a sense of foreboding began to creep in. There was an inexplicable chill in the air, a subtle warning that not all battles ended with the satisfaction of revenge. The mansion's facade, though grand and inviting, seemed to harbor mysteries beneath its polished veneer. As the deal neared its close, Sarah couldn't help but feel that this acquisition was merely the prologue to an even more intricate and perilous narrative. A narrative that would soon blur the lines between friend and foe, truth and deception, and ultimately, love and betrayal. Standing before the imposing gates of the mansion, Sarah felt a surge of emotions that mingled triumph with a lingering sense of melancholy. The expansive estate, with its intricate carvings and lush gardens, seemed to whisper stories of old glories and forgotten secrets. For years, Mark's mansion had been the symbol of his arrogance, a fortress of wealth that had dismissed the dreams of a young waitress. Now, as Sarah prepared to claim it, she experienced a bittersweet victory, a reclamation of power that was both exhilarating and haunting. In the silence of the twilight, she wandered the corridors, each step echoing the footsteps of a past that she was determined to overwrite. The once mocking voices of her detractors now seemed distant, their derision transformed into an eerie silence. Every room held memories of those who had once cast her aside, and every window framed the landscape of a city that had evolved alongside her. The mansion was more than just a physical space. It was a repository of emotions, a testament to the struggles and the victories that defined her journey. As she traced her fingers along the cold marble surfaces and intricate woodwork, Sarah felt a complex cocktail of emotions. A fierce joy warred with a creeping doubt. Had the price of revenge been too high? In quiet moments of reflection, the mansion seemed to breathe, its walls absorbing the echoes of lost laughter and lingering regret. "This is my moment," she murmured to herself, voice trembling with both pride and uncertainty. Yet, even as she savored the victory, an unsettling feeling gnawed at the edges of her consciousness. There was something inexplicably off about the estate, a subtle disturbance that belied the perfection of its outward appearance. As night deepened, the mansion's grandeur faded into shadows, and Sarah's heart began to whisper warnings of unforeseen twists yet to come. In that solitary space, the promise of vindication was tempered by a premonition, a silent reminder that every triumph carried the potential for heartbreak. In the days that followed the acquisition of the mansion, Sarah immersed herself in the meticulous task of restoring and repurposing the grand estate. The transformation of the mansion became a metaphor for her own rebirth, a deliberate act of reclaiming a space that had once been a symbol of her oppressor's arrogance. With a team of trusted workers and advisors by her side, she set out to breathe new life into the old structure, converting its cold, empty halls into a vibrant hub of creativity and community. The renovation process was both physically demanding and emotionally draining. Each brushstroke on peeling walls and every repaired window brought back memories of a past filled with scorn and neglect. Yet, amid the dust and clamor of construction, there emerged a renewed sense of purpose. Sarah envisioned the mansion as a sanctuary for those who had ever been belittled by society, a place where resilience was celebrated and every brick was a testament to the power of transformation. However, as the renovation progressed, hints of the mansion's former life began to surface in unexpected ways. Hidden behind panels and beneath layers of time-worn wallpaper, she discovered old letters and photographs that painted a picture of a man vastly different from the tyrant she had imagined. These relics, once discarded and forgotten, slowly unveiled a narrative that complicated her long-held beliefs about Mark. In quiet moments amid the renovation chaos, Sarah found herself drawn to the silent echoes of the past, each artifact a window into a story untold. The mansion's walls, once a fortress of Mark's pride, now whispered secrets of quiet compassion and unspoken regrets. Yet, even as these revelations stirred a maelstrom of conflicting emotions, Sarah remained resolute. The restoration was not just a reversal of physical decay, it was a cleansing of the soul. With every careful restoration, She sought to expunge the bitterness of her old wounds and replace it with something more enduring. Understanding, reconciliation, and a newfound hope that even the deepest scars could one day heal. As the mansion slowly transformed into a beacon of redemption, Sarah's own inner landscape began to shift, setting the stage for revelations that would soon upend everything she believed about her past and her destiny. Late one humid evening, as the hum of the city blended with the soft rustling of newly planted acacia trees, Sarah sat alone in a dimly lit corner of the mansion's newly refurbished study. Surrounded by relics of a bygone era and stacks of legal documents, she began to reflect on the long and arduous journey that had led her here. The narrative of revenge that had fueled her ascent was starting to unravel beneath the weight of unexpected truths and buried emotions. Every decision, every hard-fought victory, was now tinged with the realization that the past was not as black and white as she had once believed. The mansion, with its renewed vibrancy, also harbored layers of complexity that mirrored her own evolving soul. In the quiet solitude of the study, she found herself poring over old files, letters, and financial records related to Mark's estate. Amid the familiar figures and legal jargon, subtle discrepancies began to emerge, small details that hinted at manipulations and hidden agendas. As the clock ticked relentlessly on the wall, Sarah's mind raced through scenarios that questioned everything she had known about her nemesis. The fierce determination that had once driven her was now intermingled with a growing sense of uncertainty. What if the man she had long vilified was not the sole architect of her misfortune? The documents whispered secrets of financial troubles, secret benefactions, and silent alliances that painted a picture far more complicated than the one she had imagined. In that hushed hour, a flicker of doubt crept into her heart, casting shadows over the certainty of her vendetta. Was her relentless pursuit of retribution justified, or was she merely a pawn in a much larger, more insidious game? The intricacies of Mark's financial records and personal correspondences hinted at a network of deceit, one that implicated unseen figures hidden behind layers of power and influence. In that moment of introspection, Sarah realized that the road to justice was far more convoluted than a simple case of payback. The mansion, her hard-won prize, now symbolized not just triumph over humiliation but also the daunting responsibility of unearthing the truth. With a deep, steadying breath, she resolved to dig deeper, determined to uncover every secret and untangle the web of lies that had ensnared her life for so long. Driven by an insatiable curiosity and a need for clarity, Sarah embarked on an exhaustive investigation into the mysteries that had begun to haunt Mark's legacy. Her days were consumed by relentless research, late-night calls to former associates, and clandestine meetings with individuals who had once whispered secrets in the corridors of power. Each conversation and every piece of evidence served as a puzzle piece in a larger picture that was slowly coming into focus. The deeper she delved, the more she discovered a labyrinth of connections and hidden agendas that extended far beyond her own personal vendetta. In the bustling heart of Accra, where modern skyscrapers and ancient traditions intermingled, she navigated a complex network of informants and confidants, all too aware that trust was a luxury in a game of shadows. One rain-soaked afternoon, as dark clouds gathered over the city, Sarah met with an old friend, a retired accountant known for his meticulous record-keeping and unwavering integrity. Over steaming cups of traditional Ghanaian cocoa, he revealed a series of financial irregularities that pointed to deliberate mismanagement within Mark's estate. The discrepancies were subtle yet deliberate, suggesting that someone had manipulated the figures to serve their own hidden agenda. As the pieces of the puzzle began to align, a disturbing pattern emerged. Not only had Mark's financial downfall been engineered from within his inner circle, but there were also signs that he had been manipulated into playing a role far more tragic than anyone could have imagined. The revelations shook Sarah to her core. In the quiet moments after each discovery, she grappled with a maelstrom of emotions: disbelief, anger, and an unexpected pang of sorrow. The lines between friend and foe blurred as she began to see that the true enemy might not be the man who had once tormented her, but an unknown force that had exploited their vulnerabilities for its own gain. As the investigation deepened, Sarah realized that her quest for revenge had evolved into something far more profound, a pursuit of truth that might ultimately offer her the redemption she had long sought. With every new lead and every whispered secret, the narrative of her life was being rewritten, and the mansion's dark past was gradually giving way to the promise of a complex, heart-wrenching future. One fateful evening, as the golden hues of sunset melted into the deep blues of twilight, Sarah discovered a trove of old letters tucked away in a forgotten drawer of the mansion's study. The faded paper and delicate script carried a history that transcended the present, a narrative that was as haunting as it was unexpected. With trembling hands, she began to read the heartfelt words, each line a confession of love, regret, and sacrifice. To her astonishment, the letters painted a portrait of Mark that was starkly different from the tyrant she had despised. In these fragile documents, Mark revealed a side of himself that had long been hidden from the world, a side marked by compassion, a sense of duty, and even a secret, unspoken admiration for her resilience. The words were filled with expressions of regret for choices made under the crushing weight of societal expectations and hints that he had, in his own discreet way, supported her during moments of overwhelming struggle. Sarah's heart wavered between vindication and heartbreak. The revelation of Mark's true nature introduced an unexpected twist in her meticulously planned narrative of revenge. How could it be that the man who had once mocked her now appeared to have harbored an unspoken tenderness? The letters also carried clues that something far more devious had orchestrated the downfall of both of them. There were references to shadowy figures and secret meetings, hints of a conspiracy designed to pit them against one another. As the words sank in, Sarah realized that the battle she had waged against humiliation was but a fragment of a larger, insidious war. The careful manipulation of their fates had turned them into unwitting pawns in a dangerous game. In the quiet solitude of that moment, with the echoes of Mark's hidden truths reverberating in her soul, Sarah's quest for revenge took on a new dimension. It was no longer merely about reclaiming dignity, it had transformed into an urgent need to unmask the true architects of her suffering. The letters, fragile and weathered by time, served as both a testament to the complexity of human nature and a call to action. With resolve hardening in her chest, Sarah knew that the next step in her journey was to confront the darker forces at work, even if it meant re-examining every long-held belief about her enemy and her own path to redemption. The discovery of Mark's tender confessions ignited a maelstrom of conflicting emotions within Sarah. As she grappled with the shocking duality of his character, the once clear lines of her quest for revenge blurred into a maze of moral quandaries and raw human vulnerability. Every memory of his disdainful sneers now mingled with the sorrowful undertones of his letters, forcing her to confront the uncomfortable truth that the enemy she had envisioned might have been a victim of a larger, sinister plan. In the wake of this revelation, sleepless nights became a battleground for her thoughts. The mansion, with its newly uncovered secrets, echoed with the voices of a past that was both tender and treacherous. She began to question whether the burning desire for vengeance had clouded her judgment, blinding her to the possibility that the true villain might be lurking in the shadows, orchestrating their downfall from a distance. Determined to uncover the complete truth, Sarah re-examined every detail of her interactions with Mark and revisited the subtle hints embedded in the legal documents and personal files she had painstakingly compiled. Conversations with former associates, once dismissive of her wild suspicions, now took on a new urgency as she pressed them for details. Each revelation was a stepping stone towards understanding the intricate web of betrayal that had ensnared them both. In her quest for clarity, Sarah realized that the path to justice required more than a simple act of payback. It demanded a deep exploration of the forces that had manipulated fate from behind the scenes. The mansion, standing as a silent witness to the unfolding drama, held clues that whispered of secrets too perilous to ignore. With every new piece of evidence, the puzzle grew more complex, and the stakes became higher. In the dim light of her study, Sarah vowed that she would not let her past be defined by simplistic notions of good and evil. Instead, she would unravel the tangled threads of deceit, exposing those who had turned her life into a battleground for their own ambitions. The letters had opened a door to a hidden narrative, a narrative where love, regret, and betrayal danced together in a tragic waltz. And now, with her resolve tempered by the bittersweet truth, Sarah prepared to step through that door, ready to face the ultimate test of her newfound strength. The investigation that followed was a relentless pursuit of answers in a maze of deception. Sarah combed through every scrap of evidence, from faded photographs to obscure financial records, each piece a potential key to unlocking the secret that had upended her life. The task was grueling. Days turned into weeks as she meticulously connected the dots between the letters, Mark's clandestine acts of kindness, and the enigmatic discrepancies in his estate's accounts. Every meeting with old colleagues, every hushed conversation in the dimly lit back rooms of Accra's financial district revealed a new layer of complexity. It became increasingly clear that a shadowy figure hidden behind the facade of legitimate transactions had manipulated events to orchestrate a bitter feud between her and Mark. This unseen puppet master had sown seeds of discord with such precision that both of their lives had been turned into battlegrounds for a feud they never chose. The realization was a bitter pill to swallow. In the midst of her inquiry, Sarah encountered individuals who spoke in coded language about the true orchestrator and the hand that plays both sides. Their cryptic words only deepened the mystery, urging her to press on despite the overwhelming odds. The more she uncovered, the more it became apparent that her journey was part of a larger, more sinister narrative. It was not enough to simply settle old scores, she had to expose the machinations of those who had manipulated her destiny. As the city of Accra continued its vibrant dance between tradition and modernity, Sarah's investigation evolved into a personal crusade against injustice. Every new revelation was a testament to the idea that the face of one's enemy was not always the one you expected. The investigation was no longer solely about reclaiming what had been taken from her, it was about unmasking the true adversary who had exploited their vulnerabilities for his own gain. With each breakthrough, the labyrinth of deceit began to unravel, and Sarah's determination grew stronger. Yet, in the midst of these revelations, a haunting question persisted: had she been chasing a phantom all along? The stakes were higher than ever, and the consequences of failure would be devastating. In the quiet of a star-studded night, as the city slumbered beneath a blanket of silence, Sarah vowed to see the truth through to its bitter end, even if it meant confronting the ghosts of her past and the demons of a deeply entrenched conspiracy. With mounting evidence and the weight of betrayal pressing on her shoulders, Sarah felt the urgency to confront the looming mystery head-on. In a secret meeting held in a modest, dimly lit cafe off one of Accra's bustling streets, she gathered a small group of trusted confidants. Among them was a shrewd lawyer known for her unwavering integrity, an ex-government official with deep insights into political intrigues, and the retired accountant who had first revealed the financial irregularities in Mark's estate. Their conversation was laced with tension and guarded whispers as they pieced together the puzzle. It became increasingly evident that the true enemy was not merely a single individual, but a collective force that thrived on sowing division and reaping chaos. The mastermind behind the manipulation had carefully played both sides, ensuring that Sarah and Mark were pitted against one another. With every new detail, the stakes of her quest grew ever higher. The trusted allies offered their expertise, explaining how such covert operations were not uncommon in the corridors of power in Accra, where corruption and manipulation often lurked beneath the veneer of respectability. As they exchanged insights over steaming cups of locally brewed coffee, a sense of grim determination filled the room. Sarah's eyes, once filled with a singular thirst for revenge, now shone with the light of resolute purpose. This was not simply about reclaiming dignity, it was about setting the record straight, unmasking those who had played with lives like mere pawns in their grand schemes. With each shared piece of intelligence, the shadowy figure behind the conspiracy grew clearer. They spoke in hushed tones of influential figures who operated behind closed doors, men and women whose names were rarely uttered but whose power was undeniable. The meeting ended with a silent pact, a promise to follow the trail wherever it led, regardless of the cost. In that moment, Sarah realized that her journey had evolved into a fight for justice that extended far beyond personal vendetta. It was a battle against a system of corruption that had, for too long, reaped havoc on innocent lives. As the night deepened and the cafe emptied, the pact was sealed with a silent understanding that the fight ahead would be as perilous as it was necessary. In the wake of that fateful meeting, Sarah plunged even deeper into the investigation, determined to unravel the complex web of deceit that had once manipulated her life. Her days blended into nights as she pored over documents, revisited old acquaintances, and followed leads that took her into the underbelly of Accra's power corridors. Every new piece of evidence was like a drop of rain that, together, would eventually reveal the entire storm. One day, while sifting through a disorganized stack of files in the dusty attic of her newly acquired mansion, she discovered a mysterious envelope. It was unmarked and sealed with a wax emblem she didn't recognize, a silent promise of secrets yet to be unveiled. Inside, detailed records and cryptic notes pointed to transactions that had been deliberately misrepresented, and there were references to meetings held under the cover of darkness. It was clear that these documents were the fingerprints of the elusive puppet master whose influence had tainted both her and Mark's destinies. With trembling hands, Sarah began to connect the dots, her mind racing with the implications of this newfound evidence. The discovery confirmed her worst fears, that her long-held belief in Mark's cruelty was only a fraction of the truth. There was an unseen force at play. A meticulously orchestrated plan to bring them both down, to erase their potential and keep the true power brokers firmly in control. As the implications sank in, Sarah's determination crystallized into a steely resolve. No longer would she be content with superficial retribution. The fight had grown into a quest for truth, one that demanded the courage to face the darkest corners of a system steeped in corruption. With every file she reviewed and every conversation she initiated, Sarah edged closer to unmasking the true enemy. And though the weight of this revelation threatened to overwhelm her, it also ignited an inner fire, a burning desire to expose the conspiracy and reclaim not just her dignity, but also the justice that had been so long denied to her and countless others like her. With the mounting evidence and a heart hardened by years of struggle, Sarah resolved that the time for subtle inquiry had passed. The moment had come to confront the most painful twist of her narrative, the impending purchase of Mark's mansion, the very epicenter of her past torment, and the key to unlocking the final secrets of this elaborate conspiracy. Before finalizing the deal, she sought out the assistance of a seasoned investigative journalist, Kofi, whose reputation for uncovering deep-seated corruption was widely known across the region. Kofi, with his piercing insight and a network that spanned the city's underbelly to its highest echelons of power, agreed to help. Together, they embarked on a covert operation that took them to hidden archives, encrypted databases, and secret meetings in smoke-filled rooms where whispered deals dictated destinies. As they navigated the labyrinth of clues and corroborated testimonies, the investigation revealed a disturbing reality. The evidence pointed toward a deliberate framing of Mark as the villain, a convenient scapegoat for a broader, more calculated plot to divert attention from those who truly held power. Every thread of deceit they unraveled painted a picture of betrayal that extended far beyond the personal vendettas Sarah had once harbored. It became increasingly clear that the mansion was not only the symbol of Mark's supposed cruelty, but also a strategic asset in a grand scheme designed to dismantle their spirits and control the narrative. The revelations were both shocking and heartbreaking, forcing Sarah to reassess everything she had believed about her enemy and herself. In hushed, tense exchanges with Kofi, they pieced together the roles played by powerful individuals whose actions had left indelible marks on the lives of many. The mansion, a silent witness to decades of manipulation, now stood as the crucible for a showdown that would redefine the power dynamics in Accra. As Sarah stared at the documents laid out before her, a storm of emotions raged within her, a mix of rage, sorrow, and the bittersweet taste of impending vindication. With every heartbeat, she felt the weight of destiny pressing upon her. The time for mere retaliation was over. Now it was about exposing a network of corruption and rewriting the story of her life. In that decisive moment, Sarah prepared herself for the confrontation that would not only challenge her long-held beliefs but also determine the fate of everyone entangled in this web of deceit. The night before the final transaction, as the city of Accra lay cloaked in the quiet mystery of darkness, Sarah found herself revisiting every memory and every clue that had led her to this juncture. The mansion, once a monument of cruelty, now brimmed with secrets that demanded to be told. In the solitude of the night, the weight of her choices pressed on her like 1,000 whispered regrets. Determined to face the truth, she sought solace in the old, familiar rhythms of her childhood, a time when the African nights were filled with the comforting sounds of distant drums and the gentle hum of communal life. Amid these memories, she recalled the fleeting moments of kindness that had once pierced through the veil of mockery and cruelty, moments that now stood in stark contrast to the bitter path of revenge she had pursued. As she carefully reread the documents and letters, every detail resonated with a deeper meaning. Mark's secret notes, laden with remorse and unspoken love, clashed with the dark intentions of the anonymous architect behind their downfall. In those fragile lines of paper, Sarah saw the possibility of redemption for both herself and Mark, a chance to rewrite a narrative that had long been dictated by bitterness. Yet, the voice of caution within her urged that the price of uncovering such truths might be higher than she had imagined. Torn between the desire to honor the hidden compassion in Mark's words and the burning need to expose the true enemy, Sarah wrestled with a profound internal conflict. The mansion, shrouded in the silence of the night, seemed to hold its breath as if anticipating the unfolding of a momentous revelation. With each passing minute, the veil of secrecy grew thinner, and the true scope of the conspiracy loomed larger on the horizon of her thoughts. In that fragile pre-dawn hour, as the first hints of light began to tease the darkness away, Sarah made a solemn vow. She would confront the truth head-on, even if it meant shattering the illusions of revenge and facing the painful reality of love and betrayal intertwined. It was a promise to herself, a commitment to uncover the hidden forces that had orchestrated her suffering and to reclaim not just her dignity, but also the narrative of her life, once and for all. The day of reckoning dawned with a surreal calm over the city, a deceptive tranquility that belied the turbulent storm raging within Sarah's heart. With the mansion's final paperwork spread out before her, every pen stroke, every signature, carried the weight of a lifetime's worth of agony and ambition. In the bustling real estate office, where the clatter of keyboards and murmurs of transactions filled the air, Sarah's mind wandered back to the faces of those who had once scorned her, particularly Mark. His name had been the rallying cry for her uprising, a symbol of every moment of humiliation that had spurred her to rise. Yet, as she scrutinized the documents, a growing disquiet took root, a nagging sensation that the narrative she had meticulously constructed was built on a foundation of half-truths and manipulated perceptions. In quiet moments before the signing, she recalled the whispered words of Kofi, the investigative journalist who had become both an ally and a guide. His solemn expressions and measured tones had hinted at deeper conspiracies, at secret puppeteers whose machinations stretched far beyond personal vendettas. Sarah's internal dialogue grew louder as she weighed the evidence of Mark's hidden affections against the darker forces that had conspired to ruin him. Every clause in the contract was a reminder of the finality of this moment, an irreversible step towards a future shaped by revelations and heart-wrenching betrayals. As her signature graced the paper, it symbolized not only her victory over a life of subjugation, but also the closing of one chapter and the uncertain beginning of another. The exchange was marked by a bittersweet silence, punctuated by the rustling of documents and the soft hum of determination. In that decisive moment, Sarah's heart thudded with a mix of pride, sorrow, and apprehension. The mansion, now legally hers, was more than a trophy of revenge. It was a living archive of a tumultuous journey, a repository of every lesson learned and every scar earned. Even as the reality of her victory began to settle in, a shadow of doubt lingered, whispering that the final act of this epic tale was yet to come. The past, with its myriad complexities, refused to be forgotten so easily, and the specter of the unseen enemy loomed as a silent promise of further revelations. In the days that followed the historic acquisition, the mansion became a hive of activity and introspection. Sarah dedicated herself to transforming the once oppressive estate into a vibrant space that could serve as a symbol of renewal and empowerment for all those who had suffered in silence. But even as the physical renovations progressed, the invisible scars of betrayal continued to fester within her. Late at night, in the quiet solitude of her new home, she found herself poring over every detail of the investigation. The evidence she had meticulously gathered, every letter, every cryptic note, was laid out like a roadmap leading to a truth that was both elusive and tantalizing. The mansion's corridors, filled with the echoes of a turbulent past, now played host to Sarah's private moments of vulnerability. In the dim glow of a single lamp, she replayed her conversations with Kofi and the retired accountant, each word a clue that pointed to an even deeper conspiracy. There were inconsistencies in timelines, unexplained delays in legal proceedings, and a persistent feeling that someone was always one step ahead of her. As her suspicion grew, so did the urgency to confront this looming adversary. The thought that the person responsible for orchestrating the downfall of both her and Mark might still be free sent a shiver down her spine. Every creak of the old mansion, every whisper of wind through the ancient trees outside, felt like a harbinger of impending confrontation. Yet, even amidst the uncertainty, Sarah's resolve remained unshaken. She resolved to leave no stone unturned, determined to expose the truth behind the tangled web of deceit that had cost so much. As days turned into weeks, the mansion slowly transformed into a beacon of hope and renewal, but the undercurrent of mystery only grew stronger. The final piece of the puzzle, a crucial document hidden deep within a forgotten archive, remained out of reach, a silent challenge from the puppeteer of their fates. And then, one crisp morning, as the first rays of sunlight filtered through the grand windows, a letter arrived, a letter that would force Sarah to confront the full measure of her past and the true identity of the enemy she had been chasing all along. Heart-pounding with both anticipation and dread, Sarah raced to the hospital, driven by a desperate need to confront Mark and uncover the final chapter of their shared history. The drive was a blur of emotion and memory, a torrent of recollections of laughter, scorn, and the tender confessions hidden within faded letters. When she arrived, the hospital corridors were eerily quiet, the sterile lighting casting long shadows that seemed to whisper of secrets and lost time. In a small, sparsely furnished room, she found an empty bed, its crisp sheets belying the absence of the man who had once been both her tormentor and, as she had discovered, a secret benefactor. On the bedside table lay an envelope, its contents a final message from Mark, a deeply emotional note penned in trembling handwriting that spoke of regrets, hidden kindness, and a love that had been too afraid to speak aloud. Just beneath the note, an anonymous message was scrawled in bold, unyielding letters. Mark was never your enemy. But your real enemy is still close, watching, and ready to finish what they started. In that charged moment, a wave of heart-wrenching realization crashed over Sarah. The envelope, its words etched into her mind, shattered the last remnants of her certainty. Tears mingled with the resolve in her eyes as she clutched the paper close, feeling the weight of every sacrifice, every betrayal, and every glimmer of hope. The hospital room, with its stark emptiness and clinical chill, transformed into a stage for the ultimate revelation. A confrontation with the unseen forces that had manipulated her life. In that silent space, where the boundaries between love and enmity blurred, Sarah was forced to reckon with the painful truth that her journey was far from over. The echo of the anonymous message reverberated in her soul, a stark warning that the battle for justice was not yet won. With trembling determination, she vowed to follow the trail of clues, to unmask the true enemy lurking in the shadows, even if it meant risking everything she had fought for. The empty bed, the emotional note, and that final, chilling message coalesced into a moment of raw vulnerability and fierce determination. A moment that would propel her into the final act of her epic saga. Standing at the crossroads of heartbreak and revelation, Sarah felt the magnitude of her journey like never before. The mansion, now a symbol of her triumph over adversity, had also become a repository of secrets, regrets, and hidden truths. In the days that followed her discovery at the hospital, every step she took was charged with an urgency born of betrayal and a yearning for justice. The anonymous message had ignited a spark, a call to arms against a foe whose identity was shrouded in darkness. As she revisited the intricate web of clues, re-examining the letters, financial records, and whispered conversations, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The realization was as devastating as it was empowering. She had been manipulated not only by the ghosts of her past, but also by a present force that was determined to crush her spirit. In a series of tense confrontations, clandestine meetings, and soul-searching reflections, Sarah finally pieced together the intricate design of her enemy. A hidden figure who had orchestrated the downfall of both her and Mark, pitting them against each other to serve a far more sinister purpose. Now, with the truth laid bare before her, the path forward was clear yet fraught with peril. Sarah's heart, scarred by years of humiliation and betrayal, beat with the fierce rhythm of a warrior ready to reclaim her destiny. Standing in the glow of a new dawn, she addressed her audience with a voice that trembled with both sorrow and fierce determination. If my story has taught you anything, let it be this. Never let your past define you, and never allow those who seek to undermine your worth to triumph. Fight for the truth, for justice, and for your own redemption. With these impassioned words, she urged everyone listening, whether through YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, or Instagram, to take a stand in their own lives. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this story with your friends, and comment below on the lessons you've learned. As Sarah embarked on this final, perilous journey to confront her true enemy, her story became a rallying cry for anyone who had ever been oppressed or belittled. It was a reminder that even in the darkest shadows, the light of truth could shine through, transforming pain into power and injustice into a legacy of redemption.